Hello, and welcome to the Future Unemployed podcast, where we talk about literature. My name is Ryan, and today we're doing a solo episode. This is episode three, and today we're going to be talking about Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. This is a piece of American literature that was made in the 60s. It was published in 1968, and it would inspire the two famous movies Blade Runner, the one that came out in the 80s, and the one that recently came out in 2017. And it's set in a dystopian future of the United States where most people um, have moved out of the planet. So this is kind of the world where the UN kind of runs everything, and Earth has been kind of just completely surrounded by toxic radiation, um, high levels of pollution, and just very like bleak and unlivable environments. So a lot of people are then pushed off planet into colonies out in like Mars, and in these colonies, people are given a couple of android servants to accompany them. They help with labor, basic tasks, or for maybe those in high-end lifestyle, you know, deal with like being a personal chef or such. And this has made life particularly bleak for those humans who are still staying in the planet. Um, it's everything. It kind of sets a whole mood that everything's just dark and just very hopeless the whole time. And it's kind of sets the same vibe as in the movies as well. I would agree with the choice of tone and mood that they set in the movies. Um, and one key aspect about the future that it portrays is that a lot of the animals are extinct. The environment is in complete shambles. And what that basically does is it places like animals as this like status symbol, or as almost like a commodity, and that it's used as a means to make people more human and more empathetic. As given the name, most of the animals that are on this like market, the commodity market, are actually electronic. It means a lot more if you can get a real goat or a real sheep or a real frog or whatever. Um, it boosts your status for those around you, and people are always asking questions. It's like the topic of conversation. Um, and basically, the story follows two people, but it mainly follows John Deckard. He's a detective that whose goal and John Deckard plays a crucial role as in this story. A couple of androids get loose. They break out of their colony on Mars from their servants, and they end up killing a couple of people. And they found a way to get back to Earth. And John Deckard is then assigned these missions to go hunt these people, go hunt these androids that have gone rogue. And it proves to be very challenging as these androids look and feel exactly like humans. They bleed, they have facial expressions, and they talk and communicate and embed themselves in the society there. And of course, this raises questions outside the book on what does it mean to be empathetic? What does it mean to be human? And a lot to do with the future. I mean, today we're seeing a lot of development of AI, and eventually, when it gets to a point of like, okay, when does it start to think? What at what point do we dictate like this is a real idea? This is like something original. The storyline also follows this character named Isidore, who is a human, but is almost viewed as a subhuman because he's dictated as a special person, meaning that he is very low intelligent and can't really do a lot of the basic things. He often gets a nickname of Chicken Head. Um, Again, it refers to his how he's unintelligent. And it, again, it raises these questions because throughout the story, Isidore is often viewed as, or he's portrayed as someone who's actually empathetic. Um, Later on, he crossed paths with the androids that escaped Mars, and he shows honestly signs of uh, just gratitude because they become friends, and he treats them like normal people. He has this actual sense of empathy compared to when you see the main character John Deckard. Isidore gives people this idea of the benefit of the doubt. He shows people kindness, and he has a more dynamic view of how the world works. It's not so linear or closed-minded as I think John Deckard is portrayed as. He's given his mission, excuse me, mission, and then he has to go out and pursue it, and that's it. He doesn't really think too much of what's going on. He just does as he's told. Even though he's human, he just feels like he's tied down by this duty to keep going and going. Um, and eventually, John Decker succeeds. He ends up killing. There were six robots that escaped. He ends up killing all six, um, and he finds that it kind of didn't really bring him anything. He was so frustrated by the end of it; it felt almost pointless. Um, and in general, it keeps bringing up these ideas of like a society and what it means to be a community and where to find morality as we're getting further and further in the future, and we're almost getting detached from what it means to be human. And there's a couple of symbols throughout there. Religion is a big part of it, but how they portray religion is through two items called an empathy box and a mood organ. And both are really interesting symbols that he brought up. And you can, and this was made in the 60s before like telephone was big or the internet or anything. But in a lot of ways, they kind of replicate it, I think, and especially with the rise of social media and the 24-hour news cycle on TV, where we have like these big media conglomerates like CNN, BBC, Fox News that just dominate the intellectual marketplace. So basically, what these do is the mood organ can like automatically change your mood. Like if you have to go do some dishes, it changes your mind to be want to be more productive. Or you have to go to sleep, it winds you down. Or if you want to go watch television, you're not in the mood. It can get you in the mood to watch television. It's um, it just automatically changes like the chemicals in your brain. The empathy box is has a lot more to do with the religion aspect of the story, as it's used to connect the feelings of everyone throughout the story, throughout the planet together through a religion called mercantilism. The empathy box allows a person to see and feel and kind of understand other people who are also in touch with the empathy box. Um, and it's a tool that the wife of John Decker uses all of the time. She's absolutely infatuated with it, and she buys into this religion that's later found out to be just a sham. But it also shows that she can't find any friends, even though she's unemployed. There's no children. She struggles to make connections throughout the world around her, even though there's plenty of humans nearby. Um, and rather than going out and pursuing that, she just looks through her empathy box and uses her mood organ in order to change her own mood. Uh, and it kind of shows a failure of community that no one's coming together actually one on one. They're instead opting out for just these like cheap connections and cheap thrills through the mood organ and through the empathy box. And this is really similar, I think, to um, like the internet and everything it's brought with it, the telephone and social media and additionally like YouTube and just in general computers and gaming. I feel like they're all kind of like mimics of this idea. We're no longer like all together or anything like that. We sometimes can feel this like cheap dopamine rush that oh we're together. I get this sense of connectedness. Oh I relate to this post on Instagram or this YouTuber's really funny. He kind of speaks to some of my things, but we're never actually one on one. I mean, of course, I think we are one on one, but you can kind of see it start to devolve and develop over time. That I think people are getting less and less connected with each other, and in at least obviously I'm a young person, right? So I can't speak to what it was like before. But when I ask a lot of people around me who are older than me what it was like before and like what are the differences now, I always hear the same thing on how there's really big like disconnection. People aren't as connected as they used to. I mean, like I barely know my neighbors. Like it's people don't really talk to each other as much one on one. There's no like formalities to anything. It's all just social media. I mean, of course you still have your friends. Of course there's um, you still have close people around you. But I think society is starting to develop and develop or I guess devolve rather than that, into just everything's on the internet, and it's kind of just these cheap rushes of connection. Nothing is actually really of any sustenance. Um, yeah. So, I mean, it's, excuse me. And I think the mood organ also does that. You know, the empathy box connect makes people feel connected even though they're not. The mood organ actually um, makes people like chemically change their brain to think, oh yeah, I really want to do this. I really want to do this. And I think that feeds into a lot of modern day marketing and specifically like specifically quick content like you see on like Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts or in like TikToks. They're so short and they give you such dopamine rushes and such quick marketing that you kind of just don't have your own thought. It's just whatever they're feeding you and whatever triggers your brain to like engage and be like, oh, this is relatable, or I want this, or it's never really thinking on your own. And I this is obviously depressing, but I think it was honestly really prolific for him to kind of see that far out because I mean obviously I'm not from the '60s, but I couldn't imagine there being such a like an such an attention grabber. Maybe the television. Television was big back then, but I don't think it was like gives one the foresight to be able to see this, which I think is incredible that he was able to kind of have foresight and think that as capitalism produces, as this technology is grabbing more people's attention, that this is probably what's going to happen to our communities, to our interactions, to our face to face. And I would 100% recommend this book. I mean, I think it's very prolific. At the same time, I do also think sometimes it's a little slow and confusing, and the ending is very ambiguous, and it feels a lot very dreary. But I think it brings in a lot of key topics and really important information, not information, but ideas that should be up for debate that I feel like aren't up for debate about social media and just the direction we're going as a people in society. So thank you so much for listening.